Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 165 of the Civil Gore podcast. I'm your host, Tim.
And this is Brian. And we're back after a week's hiatus. It was not a
I feel like
planned
it's
hiatus.
been several weeks.
It does. It feels like it's an eternity. It feels like it was almost 4 years. But yeah, no, we apologize. It was not a planned break. We had the episode that we're doing tonight was supposed to be last week. Actually, without the surprise interview. Actually, the delay helped us because we got a nice interview about another movie tonight, which we'll talk about in a little bit. You know, we knew the election results were not going to be the night of like they normally tend to be, you know, give or take, maybe the next day for final. But you usually get an idea by the end of the night. But obviously with COVID and all the mail-in voting, this was not your typical election. And the problem is Tim and I are... It shows why we are good friends, because both of us literally, our stomachs were knots. We could not turn away from the TV. We barely went to the first night of election night. I slept on the couch because I didn't really sleep. I just laid on the couch all night, maybe dozed off for like 5 minutes. I never went into the bedroom. Julie came out in the morning. She goes, "Oh my God, what happened?" Because I was just so I had to watch every second, and it was, you know, it was just the over and over and over, you know.
It was too much.
But I had to see it. I had to see it through. But we felt like, you know, sometimes, you know, there's things that just will take precedence over the podcast, and this was just too important not to. Our hearts weren't in doing the podcast, basically, when we were so invested in the election.
Yeah, I was about to say, it wasn't going to be a good show if we were so distracted. So I'm kind of glad we postponed it. I was kind of hoping, I was about to text Brian actually when he texted me just to say, I just don't think I'm up to it, you know?
And, you know, you didn't want to do anything that, like, took you away from watching it because you didn't want to miss the...
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and you know, CNN definitely didn't help when they kept saying, "Coming up, we're going to get you a new thing," you know, and it's like, and every time it was like, and we got another 12 ballots coming. I'm like, no, don't do that to me, you know. But you know, we had a good support system. We were talking with our good buddies over at KK Sam and our buddy Emily Sweet, and we were just talking to all of them about stuff throughout the thing, all throughout the nights and different times. That's a good thing about having some friends in California. You get that 3-hour buffer, and our friends in the UK who were up like from the middle of the night on, helping us update and stuff. So it was we definitely had the support system we needed throughout this.
Yeah, and for those out there who are disappointed in the election results, I promise you, it's going to be fine. So, all right, so let's get to our rundown. And Brian, I kind of changed the order here because I thought maybe since it's been a while, we had that week break, we should probably talk about the horror challenge because we never got to do a proper recap of that.
We didn't, yeah, because again, it was just the timing of everything kind of.
Yeah, so this was by far our biggest year for the horror movie challenge. We had the most entries and the most interest, and I had a blast with this one. It was definitely the most challenging by far that I've ever had to do. I mean, I was struggling even right up until the end to get that last movie in that I needed.
Oh, wait till you see what I have planned for next year already. I'm already planning next year's because it's going to be our 5th anniversary edition, and I have a couple of different like ideas to tweak it. Same basically set formula. We'll discuss. We have time, but of course, but it's like I have some a little bit of tweaks. I think that'll make it even more exciting, but definitely not easier. You got to step it up each time.
When we're doing this recap, did you just kind of want to mention some films, like spotlight some of the movies you saw?
Yeah, I think that's what we'll do it. Oh, and I should say, we did get some of the score sheets in. We haven't had a chance to look at them yet, but like we said, we're the ones that are get the full amount. Obviously not counting Tim and I, who did get the full 1,031 points. We're just going to look through those, and who, you know, obviously if there's one or, you know, if there's more than one person that got to it, then we're just going to, you know, pick and then see what, you know, and then send a Civil Gore prize pack.
Yeah. So that'll be coming up. We'll once we have a chance to go through those entries. But I'm just going to give some. I'm not going to really go into the ones that were really bad because I did have quite a few duds on here. But you guys don't need to know about those. I listed every movie that I watched on our Facebook page, so I would put an entry every time I watched one. But I did want to point out some that I saw that were like real good surprises, because this is the reason I do the horror movie challenge every year and make sure that we try to inspire people to watch movies they haven't seen before. It's because you do run across stuff that are just real treasures that you would have never watched before. One of those was Cannibal Girls for me, 1973, starring Eugene Levy.
Oh my God.
Which was so crazy because I didn't even recognize him. I didn't even find out he was in the movie until after I had watched it.
His eyebrows weren't in it?
His eyebrows were definitely in it, and for some reason I just took completely. I just didn't. I don't know. I wasn't thinking of seeing Eugene Levy in a cannibal movie, and but yeah, this is a it's one of those movies where you understand after the fact, when you see who was in it, you understand that there was an enormous amount of talent, future talent. They were early. They were young at this point. But there was an enormous amount of talent in that movie that was raising it way above where it should have been, because this was directed by none other than Ivan Reitman.
Oh, my God.
So this is like a super early movie for Eugene Levy, Ivan Reitman. I mean, powerhouses of, Hollywood film industry. And they're making this low-budget, silly, campy cannibal movie, but there was something there, and it just goes to show you that if you have talent on a movie, it can rise it way above what it probably should have been. So I would definitely recommend checking out Cannibal Girls. I think it was on, I want to say it was on Tubi or Crackle or one of those, Pluto maybe. It was on one of those free streaming sites.
You sound like you're doing all serial characters like Snap, Crackle, Pop.
Snap, Crackle, Pop. Tony the
Pluto,
Tiger.
Crackle.
Yeah, so that was a good one. I guess we'll alternate these, Brian, if you got one you want to.
Yeah, so I think you know what? I mean, I did see some classic ones that I didn't get around to seeing, of course. But the first one I'll say that I think blew me away, which I did not expect, which was that French film I saw, Among the Living, on Shudder.
I still need to see that.
Oh my God, you got to see this. This one was so unexpectedly creepy and just, oh my God. I don't even want to tell you some of the sequences because it'll take away. Just it's a short movie too, but it is kind of mixes a little bit of that if there was a French horror version of kind of almost like a Spielberg-y movie, like a Stranger Things kind of thing, but it was Stranger Things is more like pop culture-y, light horror. This was horror, and there was some good gore in it. There was some super, super creepy imagery, and it was just, I tell you, I think it was the second French movie I had seen on there, and it was the French horror movies they have their own kind of style to them that I really like, and so that one was definitely one of my favorites in there. It's kind of I know this wasn't a French one, but it was kind of like when I watched The Furies last year for that challenge. It was like one of that crazy slasher movie, which it was like I love when you just grab a movie because you're like, all right, this looks okay, for the horror challenge, and then it just blows you away. I think those are the favorite kind of things, because I could see if I wasn't looking for something for the horror challenge, I may never have come across this movie unless someone was raving about it elsewhere. And I'm like, oh, let me go check it out. But I hadn't heard much about it. I mean, it was on Shudder, so I may have discovered it, but I don't think I would have been diving into the French horror necessarily if it wasn't a criteria right now on the horror challenge. There's so much out there I'm trying to watch as it is,
Yeah, another one I was just blown away by this one, called The Monster Club from 1981. This was on Shudder. So definitely check it out before it goes off, because it's an anthology. Stars Vincent Price, one of his later roles, I guess. And it's just super, super campy. It's Vincent Price plays a vampire, and I think Donald Pleasance is in it, and he bites this man and takes him to this club, which is called the Monster Club. Which
the way you're describing things are just cracking me up. I was like, so he bites this man.
He bites the man, and he takes him to this club called the Monster Club, and it's filled with all these weird people, in totally obvious monster mask dancing around. But there's a sequence in here, and you can actually buy this poster that I'm about to tell you, which I'm going to buy this poster. I've got to have this poster. There's a sequence where Vincent Price, as the vampire, is explaining to this civilian or muggle or whatever you want to call him. He's not a monster.
A muggle.
He's explaining to him like how different monsters are created. Like what happens when a vampire mates with a werewolf? Well, it creates this. And what about a ghoul mates with a werewolf? So Vincent Price goes on this monologue, and he goes through this whole family tree of these different monsters you've never heard of, but how the genetics of them work. And it's just, oh my God, it was the best thing I saw in the entire horror movie challenge. This monologue by Vincent Price. And he's going off this poster that you can, I've seen it on Etsy or somewhere else because I looked it up specifically after the movie. So definitely check out the Monster Club. It is a lot of fun. It's super cheesy. I loved it. Loved every minute of it. Definitely one of the highlights of the horror movie challenge for me.
Yeah, I think one of the next. I think there's one that I know we both know that we'll say we should save. We'll do that one together. That'll be our last one we pick because we both loved it. After you had seen it, I watched it. But one of the other ones I really liked that I was a pleasant surprise was Starry Eyes. Stars Alex Esso, who of course has been just amazing and pretty much everything she does. She was great in Bly Manor, of course. She played the younger version of Shelley Duvall's character for the Dr. Sleep. She's been in a couple things. She was just really great in it. That's like that one where it's almost like you sell your soul to become famous, kind of in Hollywood, and then you don't necessarily know what you've now kind of like what that entails per se. And so that was a pretty good one. Had some good body horror in it too, that's what I believe that was the equivalent to the one I picked for that one. So that was definitely another one that I was surprised that I probably may not have got around to seeing so fast. But that's what I think I have to say, and not to like toot our own horn here, but that's what I think I like about the style that we do. Where I know everyone has those a lot of the horror things they have like a set like objective, but I think the way we do our objectives is the fact that you do more than the 31, and you have to combine the two. It really forces a creativity for you to really seek out some movies. And like I admit some of the challenges were hard because it's like, how do you know without seeing a movie if it's going to hit certain these criteria? And I swear to God, I felt like using that like DiCaprio point meme all the time, like every time you find that moment that you can claim another objective that you might not have been knowing about in the movie.
Yeah. There's many different ways to approach this. You could approach it like a puzzle. You can approach it like a research project, or you can just chance it. I mean, there were some movies on here that I was like, okay, I think maybe this has a pumpkin in it or something. Yeah. I'm just going to go on a limb, and if it doesn't, then oh well, I watched another movie, But
I think yours was pretty safe considering it was called Pumpkins.
Yes, that was probably a bad example.
Yeah, I took the risk. I had it was Night of the Demons. I think I used it because there was a pumpkin in the background in a scene like that was lit up. So I'm like, okay, it takes place on Halloween. Pretty much, if you pick a Halloween centric movie, you're going to hit a pumpkin somewhere in there.
One more I'll mention. Well, I'll mention two more. Just briefly, I wanted to mention The Island of Dr. Moreau because it's so infamously crazy, and it's not a good movie, but I would recommend everybody watch that film because it is so utterly batshit insane. Yeah. Like it lived up to everything I had heard about it, and I've gone for years hearing about the craziness that went on set of this movie, and it lived up to all my expectations. So definitely recommend that one. But the last recommendation I had was one called Stage Fright from 2014. I don't know how I missed this one. This is a horror musical.
Oh my God. Oh yeah.
I don't know where it came from. I was like, Stage Fright. Now, not to be confused, there's a early 80s movie called Stage Fright, which is phenomenal. It's really good.
That's the one I thought, that was when you first said it.
Yeah, that's a slasher where these kids are trapped in a theater and there's this owl-faced killer. Like, he's got an owl mask on.
Wasn't that like on Shudder, right? Or Amazon, right? When we started the podcast and we were looking through?
I think so, yeah. It's really good. So seek out Stage Fright, the early 80s one. I can't remember the exact year. This one is from 2014, and it is a horror musical starring Meatloaf, of all people. And, well, I guess that makes sense on a musical. But it's about these kids that go to a theater camp, and it's quote unquote campy. Sorry for the pun there. Definitely intended, but they go to a theater camp and they start getting stalked by a killer, and there's some typical like Scream-esque type who's the killer's real identity kind of thing going on in there. So kind of typical slashery in that respect, but it also has some really funny songs, and they do play it like a straight musical. Like there's big musical numbers and everything in it. So really, really interesting movie. Stage Fright. I'm just shocked. I kind of never heard of it when it came out only 6 years ago. So.
Ah, nice. Yeah, I think I'll do two quick ones, then we'll do the combined one we like. So the two that I think I was like really excited about that I got to see finally was Fade to Black. Which was such a classic, and that one actually ended up hitting like another one I didn't expect, like the Mummy one, because he dressed up as the Mummy. But the reason why I picked that was because I think I had remember I had said I think I found that Connections thing on IMDb that led me to realize that Night of the Living Dead was going to appear in there somewhere, so I could claim that credit. But overall, I'm glad I picked that because that's one of my favorite movies now, and it was one of those ones I don't understand how I hadn't seen until this point. Mm-hmm. And I think the other one I'll say real quick. I mean, there's a couple more that I just blew me away, but I think one more is the I think I was so glad to just have finally seen was 1031, which is that great Halloween horror anthology.
Oh, yeah, I still need to see that.
Yeah, because I think it appeared. What did I say? It was on Tubi, I think, or Amazon. I don't know, one of the two. It showed up on. I was like, oh my god, this is on there. I haven't seen it yet. So that was one of the ones where I was towards the end. I had claimed all my objectives. I just needed to get the quantity of movies up to finish off to make sure I had the 31, and that did not disappoint. That's like right up our alley, Tim. Some great segments, and it was just like it really captured that like Halloween kind of spirit. And there was some some segments were better than others, but they were all like solid segments. So definitely recommend that for good horror anthology fans.
And the last one that I believe Brian was referring to was one that we both really had a ball with, and that was Ganjiam Haunted Asylum.
Oh, yeah. That's one of my... This is now literally jumped up to one of my favorite found footage movies I've ever seen. Yeah,
that one was... I feel like I've talked about it, but I think it's because I posted about it on Facebook when I was posting through my entries, and it really is. It really is one of the best found footage movies I've ever seen. It's very... I hesitate to say that it's like any different than most found footage movies. It follows a very basic formula and a basic plot. It's just really incredibly well done, and it has that that Korean ghost aspect that's always very creepy, but it's done very, very well. So even though it has a lot of elements that are pretty basic on paper, it's just the way they pulled it off was really, really good. And you really care about the characters, and everything's just done kind of to perfection. And there's some really super creepy stuff in here. I mean, I'm pretty jaded now, as we talk about a lot of times. We've seen a lot of horror movies. There's not a lot that phases us anymore. And there was a few moments in this one that got to me.
Yeah, it was. I tell you, it's like it was. What I think this one did well is. It just, I think a lot of times it lulled you into this sense of you weren't sure if anything was going to happen, and the characters were kind of, were like that perfect line of likable and kind of like, all right, kind of like you're like, oh my god, why are they doing this kind of thing? Like, and then, but you felt invested to see what happened with them, and it just. I think the setting was what made it. Obviously, we've seen how many found footage movies have you seen that's in like some kind of building? They go in there and they're in there. But what I think this one did is it added that like the weird like woods right outside it, and they had that like little tent set up outside where they were doing the live show, and it was just. I think it was something so creepy about it that like the whole environment was creepy, and it felt. Like you felt really like it was really isolated, but it was just I don't know, and it was just I'm picking out things, but I really not sure what it was that really put it over the top for me, other than it all worked all together just perfectly. And I was telling everyone I told it actually messaged Crystal from Horror Nights In, because she's a huge found footage fan. It's one of her favorite subgenres, and I so she hadn't seen it yet, so she said she was looking forward to seeing it based on what we were saying. So I told her, I said, "Oh, you'll love it since you love found footage." So
yeah, definitely. If you haven't seen this and you're a found footage fan, it's a no brainer. So next up, Brian, I think we wanted to talk about our Halloween recap in general, because you had, of course, had your big movie marathon. I had the Halloween stuff going on with the kids. So kind of wanted to talk about everybody's Halloween, since we didn't really get a chance to discuss it.
Yeah, the movie marathon was kind of fun. I mean, I don't know how many people actually followed along. I mean, I think some people did here and there, but it was more about me just enjoying the holiday and sharing it with anyone that cared. I know, of course, Kim and Ket joined us for Trick or Treat when we watched that, and actually that's why I did a pause, because we were off a little bit on the timing. So I had paused it at one point so they could catch up and then watch. Because of course we know that is a legendary movie from their podcast as well, because of Burp's Map, as we like to say, which of course was Sam, for those people that are like Burp who don't know Kim and Ket. If you don't know them, you need to listen to them, because they will change your vocabulary for the better, I'm telling you. But and plus they're just amazing people too, so you definitely want to hear their podcast. But yeah, so they joined us for that one, so that was kind of fun. And of course I finished it off with that my 10 o'clock final movie was the original Halloween. And it was just a fun thing. I had my pumpkin beers all day. I was, having some different snacks and food, and I had like decorated. I put those hanging lights on. I'm sure you saw some of the pictures, Tim, that I was posting on.
Yeah.
And it was just like, such a fun Halloween, because I knew that the next week ahead was going to be stressful. So this Halloween was just, I'm like, I am just going to watch my horror movies all day. Drink some good pumpkin beer, eat, relax, and just enjoy the holiday. It's which is kind of good, because here's the thing: a lot of the holidays this year, have been, including the Thanksgiving and Christmas, probably won't be the same, because those are holidays that you usually share a ton with family. Now, Halloween is one, of course, you like sharing with friends, but Halloween is also very personal to a lot of horror fans. They like to do certain things. And I saw a lot of other people were doing the same thing, just doing all day watch marathon. Shutter had Shutterfest. Crystal had, I think, a live show for Horror Nights In that night. And I don't know if I didn't really talk about it yet either, but Kim and Ket had that great drunk horror history thing they did the night before, where they did They Live, and oh my god. Now, of course, like I said, they changed their vocabulary. I cannot refer to Roddy Piper anymore. He's Roddy Pipey. Because, and that was great. And they had the Madam of Horror Paige on there too, who she's awesome too. And it was, oh my god, it was such a fun night. It was like the perfect pre-Halloween. I had the best time on watching that. So yeah, so it's like, but Halloween could also be very personal for people. They like to do their certain movies they always will watch on Halloween. We have our favorites, of course. I focused most of them that day. And it was fun. It was a way to you could salvage Halloween easier than I think some of the other holidays that really require a whole bunch of family and friends to it. But I think Halloween you could still get through, because you can still do enough stuff that kind of keeps it festive.
Yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised with our Halloween. It definitely exceeded my expectations, because we really didn't know what was going to happen with trick or treating, because it was never officially canceled by any means, but there was never any official word that people were going to actually do it. So it was kind of those things where it's kind of like a wait and see. Well, we're going to put out candy. We'll just see what happens. So we did it safely. We had tables at the end of the driveway. We had the candy had already been pre-packaged in baggies, so that the kids didn't have to touch each other's candy. They didn't have to put their hand in a bowl. It was very safe. And we had that at the end of the driveway. And when I came outside to set all this up, I look up and down the street, and there's neighbors all up and down the street doing the same thing. And I was like, oh my God, this is actually happening. People are actually participating. And I will say, we got the kids ready, and I will say we probably had, I wouldn't say 100% of what a normal year would look like, but it was probably 75 to 80% of the households that would normally participate in trick-or-treating were participating this year. And I took the kids, and we walked 2 miles. I mean, we hit every house, almost every house up and down our main neighborhood street. I mean, they just made a killing, and it was so much fun. We had people out there had music going. One guy had put sticks in the yard that had the candy bags attached, so the kids could just run into the yard and grab one off of the stake.
Wow, that's cool.
You had people with the candy chutes that were launching it from the back of pickup trucks. I mean, there was all kinds of fun stuff. Like, people were doing their best to make it normal for the kids, and I just so appreciated it. And even after Halloween, like, I saw posts on like Nextdoor, and people were like, thank you so much to everybody who participated, because my kids were so worried, and I felt really proud of the neighborhood that they kind of rallied together to make it normal. You know what I mean? As normal as it possibly could be. So yeah. We had a blast. It was fun. I would say, incredibly, it was one of the most fun Halloweens I've had in the past several years in terms of just like the trick-or-treating experience.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and it was the, we always as adults, all our horror fans are like, oh, but you forget, like, remember we discussed this, I think, on the show, is that, like, how many times did you actually trick or treat as a kid, but the memories, I think we were talking to David about that, right? Where it was so many, but like literally it was only a handful of years, so it's like, for the kids to lose a year of prime trick or treat time was heartbreaking. So I'm so glad that it seemed like people found a way to still do it. The kids didn't miss anything because of this, because, they did nothing wrong to deserve not getting their Halloween. So I'm so glad they got it. It really was important. And actually, about the horror challenge too, is I think it was like, I had so much fun doing it. I was talking to Tim, and we decided we're going to do a holiday one too this year. For one day. It's going to be a Saturday. I'll pick it. We haven't picked it yet, but we're going to do where we just watch a whole bunch of holiday movie marathon. The same way we did Halloween, it'll just be this time like a horror, Christmas and horror holidays. But I'm gonna. I know one for sure. I think the two that are definitely in there are gonna be Anna and the Apocalypse. We have to do. I think, and Hosts. We have to do. And I think probably maybe we'll do like Christmas Evil, because that one was so much fun. Yeah,
there's a good, like, you could fill out a whole horror marathon with good.
Oh my God!
Holiday horror now.
I was trying to come up with just I had 7 for the Halloween one. I had like 12 right off the bat for the Christmas ones, and I'm like, I gotta start cutting them down. But so I was trying to pick the ones that are like the most meaningful, maybe to us, like the podcast. But it's still gonna be hard, because like there's like Christmas Horror Story, the one with William Shatner that we loved. Yeah,
that one's good. You got
Silent Night, Deadly Night classic ones. You got Black Christmas, of course. I want to do the original. It's like what don't we?
Krampus. You got
Krampus is guaranteed. Yeah, see, it's like I think literally there's like 7 come right off the thing right there. I don't know if we maybe we break it up into 2 half days. I don't know how we'll do it. We got to figure it out, but we'll get on it. And I already have the version of my Halloween lights that I did. I found on Amazon the version of a little Christmas tree lights that do the same thing, where they hang down like that and battery powered. This one's actually more advanced. It's got a remote with different settings, but it's still like $10 on Amazon. So
nice.
Probably pick that. Yeah, I'll pick that up to have the same thing with the decoration on there. And I should say my never updated it, but my pumpkin cookies, I had those that day, and I literally think this was the best batch ever.
Wow.
So sorry, Nestle, but I beat you. I figured out a way to get around your sticking us with those horrible truffle pumpkin things once again. But yeah, no, so I'll have to do, one of these days maybe I'll have to do like one of those like how-to videos, about me, how I made the pumpkin chips.
Yeah, you should totally do that.
But yeah, so I think we'll do the same thing with and I'll make this time I'll make my famous holiday sugar cookies though for this event.
Ooh, so nice. So Brian, you had your Amityville project continuing.
Yeah, I figured with 2 weeks I should have got more in, but obviously barely I got the one in. This one was another documentary. This isn't even in the part of the movie chain, but I had 2 the week before. Remember, I kind of tied it up into the horror challenge with that Amityville found footage one that should have never been found. But this one was My Amityville Horror, and this one is interesting. It's a documentary featuring about Daniel Lutz, which was, of course, George Lutz's son, the adopted son. And he goes into it. He gets really into how, like, he's like, he didn't, at one point he doesn't want to talk about it. At one point he does, and how he remembers it, and how he, how he really did not like George, and how, George like wanted nothing but fame from the Amityville story, and he wanted nothing to do with it, but yet he would admit to it, and he went on, and I guess he had some a reporter friend that would kind of tell the story. So they went into a bunch of stuff. They had some clips from Lorraine Warren on there, so it was a pretty good documentary. That was one of the ones I had to actually buy on Amazon though, because I could not find it anywhere to stream for free. So I think it was like $2.99 or something like that.
Yeah, I wanted to see that one.
But it was worth it. It was really interesting. It's an interesting behind-the-scenes story of it. And they go into a lot. Like, those Amityville documentaries, I mean, there's a million of, like, little, like, short ones. I'm not counting those in mine. I was only trying to do the somewhat feature-length official ones. And this was... So this was definitely one of those. And this one is a lot of little interesting tales. And he's still living in New York, but he's not near Amityville anymore. But some of the stories he tells are pretty still kind of creepy there. He tells some of the events and stuff, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I had one that I actually watched this one for the horror challenge, but when I buy Blu-rays, and I know you're the same way, Brian, typically we buy stuff that we have seen before that we just want to own because we want it as part of our collection. But then sometimes it's really fun to just buy one you've never seen and kind of take a chance on it, and then kind of go through that thrill of discovery. And that's kind of what I did with this one. It's called Shivers from 1975, and it's a David Cronenberg film. And, of course, you know what you're getting with David Cronenberg. It's probably going to have some sort of body horror in it.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason I bought this, it was it's a Vestron DVD, which are not cheap by any means. Vestron typically are fairly high priced. And this one was $12 on Amazon. I think you could still get it at Walmart of all places for like $12. Really? I don't know why this particular movie is so cheap, but I absolutely loved it. It's a really bonkers movie. It's about this resort apartment complex. And think about resort, 70s resort. I mean the 70s height of luxury, if you will. And it's this fancy posh resort that they're trying to attract all these people to this lovely new apartment complex with the pool and everything, and it gets infested with these parasitic type, almost like grub type worms that enter into your body, and then they cause you to try to spread them through sexual activity, and it's incredibly disturbing on many, many levels. I mean, there are some scenes in here that I'm going, oh my God, I cannot believe they did that. I mean, like crazy stuff with old people and kids, and like nobody's off limits in this film. And it's classic David Cronenberg, like ickiness and body horror. And I think the whole thing that makes it work is that there's enough time has passed that it's got that gritty 70s feel to it. So it just kind of makes it where it could have been campy, a little bit campy, or kind of a bit ridiculous. I think the age of it and the low budget, that's the griminess of that 70s feel to it, actually makes it more effective. So I don't know what other people think about this movie. I absolutely loved going through this one because it was just so unexpected. I knew nothing about it going in, and then to see like this crazy, just bonkers movie come out of this. I can't wait to hear the commentary. I think there's a commentary on it, or at least some extras. So I'll have to go through those at some point. But that's in the Blu-ray backlog now to finish up those extras. But it's a crazy one. I recommend it for for $12, a good Vestron Blu-ray. Yeah, go grab it. David Cronenberg.
Oh, and by the way, speaking of your Blu-rays, I just noticed actually. So Amazon, how the Elephant Man is on there for a sale. It's actually they now have a $2 coupon you can apply to it. Get it for $17.99.
Yeah, that speaks of which, I forgot to put it on the rundown, but Brian and I have gotten a bunch of Blu-rays to add to the collection this week. I think we both got our Fly collection.
No, I didn't get that one yet. That's on my wish list. I didn't put it on because I have a version of it already on Blu-ray, so I put it on my wish list instead of doubling down quite right at this moment.
Yeah, they actually have it at Walmart now. If you guys don't want to order it, they had it for at Walmart for $40.
Oh wow, that's a good deal.
But the Fly collection has all the original like Vincent Price flies, and then it has the of course the remakes, Fly and Fly 2. And then I also got the Paul Naschy Collection 2, which I was very excited about because that completes my Paul Naschy set. And then our good friend Steve Cohn sent me the steelbooks of the original It miniseries and Salem's Lot, which I did not have either of those. I had Salem's Lot on DVD, but I did not have the Blu-ray.
Yeah, I'm not a fan that cover put my frightening scene ever.
Oh my gosh,
on the
yeah. I was surprised when I opened the cover and it's got the kid at the window thing. But yeah, I was really excited. I got a bunch of great Blu-rays to dig through. I still haven't even touched my Friday the 13th set. So
I know.
I've got a ton of stuff to go through.
That's my next step, I think. And I know I've been kind of doing the Tales from the Monolith, and I haven't even gotten that regular. I haven't had time. I think I need to get that back started again. Getting back up again with that, because that's something that's definitely needs to be set, because I think people are having fun with that when I show off like a different disc out of the horror collection each day. So
yeah, that's fun. All right, so we had a kind of a surprise interview this week. It was originally scheduled. I think we were gonna maybe try to do it last week, but due to all the scheduling changes we've made. So Charles Gould, which is one of the stars, and director and writer Nicholas Santos were gracious enough to come on the podcast and do a quick interview with us. And these guys were fantastic. The movie is, without a doubt, one of the most unique movies I've seen this year.
Yeah.
It's called It Cuts Deep, and it is a horror comedy, but I will guarantee you it's unlike any horror comedy you've probably seen. It takes a very interesting style of comedy and applies it to horror, and we'll talk about it more in this upcoming interview. We will warn you, there are some spoilers in this interview. Yeah. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, I would highly recommend you go check that out first, because there are some pretty explicit spoilers in it. But it was a fantastic interview, and I was really grateful these guys were able to come on and promote it. So without further ado, here's our interview with Charles Gould and Nicholas Santos.
So as everyone knows, Tim and I are big fans of horror comedies. So we're really looking forward to checking out the new film It Cuts Deep, which is a horror dark comedy / relationship drama. Here's to talk about it with us is the writer-director Nicholas Payne Santos and star Charles Gould. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming on. I watched the movie today, actually, and really enjoyed it. It was a very odd blend of genres, I'll have to say. It's very, very interesting. But before we get into the movie, we'd like to give our listeners a chance to hear a little bit about yourselves if they haven't heard of you before, kind of what your background is. So we're going to start with Nicholas and tell our listeners kind of where you got started in the industry.
So I'm a writer-director based out of Brooklyn, New York. I've been making shorts and music videos for probably like the past 10 years. And It Cuts Deep marks my feature directorial debut.
Very nice. And Charles, I've seen some of your stand-up on YouTube.
Nice. I started as a stand-up comedian and also an actor. I lived in New York for 10 years, and now I live in LA, where it's like 39 degrees right now. So
I heard it's like a reversal, because here it was really warm today in New York.
Yeah,
I know. I feel ripped off. It's like I didn't move out here 39-degree weather.
Oh my god! Yeah, I don't know what it is. Everything's like flip floppy, I guess. But so this film is considered dark comedy horror, but also has some serious relationship dramas going throughout here. So what can you tell us about the inspiration behind the script?
So basically, I wanted it to be a horror comedy, but I wanted to be able to stand on its own if you actually stripped away the genre elements. So one of the biggest inspirations is Shaun of the Dead, which if you actually just stripped out the zombies, you'd then just kind of have a rom-com. And this film was inspired. Originally, I was planning on, when I was planning on proposing to my wife, I got this deep-seated fear of commitment, and I thought it was like the perfect jumping off point for a horror movie. And I have a hard time taking myself seriously, so that's why it also is a comedy as well.
Yeah, there was definitely a really good, like Tim said, it was a great, like a lot of different genres. And that's what was, I thought really cool about this, because, I mean, people are going to look at it as almost like this hard comedy thing, but there actually is some serious relationship topics that, that are in, that's handled in a lot of movies, but yours does it so uniquely by kind of blanketing in this really cool horror comedy.
Yeah, I mean, like it really, it definitely stems from like a real deep place. I'm now happily married, so I obviously got over my fears.
That's good.
And then I think Charles can relate very strongly to the fear of children.
So that was like
me.
so that was real, right? You really weren't just pretending it.
That child on that day, that baby on that day. If you watch the movie, there's one thing with the baby. My character is supposed to be very uncomfortable. It just so happened that I, as Charles, was also very uncomfortable around that baby. It's a baby, it's like I have no connection to this baby. It's not my nephew. It's not my niece. It's just like a baby, and he's floating around, and I'm nervous. I don't know if I'm supposed to touch him. I don't know if I'm supposed to. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. And Nick will never let me live this down because I was weirded out. I was a little weirded out by this baby. But it helped with the character.
Yeah,
but that's why it seems so real, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, Nick said that it was real when he wrote the script. My discomfort by that baby was real.
Nice.
That scene, yes.
Well, speaking of that character of Sam, Nicholas, when you wrote that character, did you always envision, that character requires some comedic chops to pull that off? Did you always envision that character being played by a comedian?
Yeah, for sure. From the start, and then as soon as I finished the script too, Charles was actually the first person that came to mind. I had known Charles for a while. He had a weekly comedy show with a few friends I went to college with. And yeah, after I finished it, I was like, who else could bring this cringe comedy to life better than Charles?
Yeah. It's funny because, yes, Nick came to this weekly show that I used to do in Brooklyn. And when you do a weekly show, you just try a lot of new material all the time. And I would say he's probably seen me bomb more than he's seen me do well. Because I definitely was not bringing my A game to my weekly show. And who knew that would actually be a good thing? In this case, all my bombing got me an opportunity, which goes to show you sometimes it is good to bomb.
Yeah, I like that you said cringe comedy because I was trying to think of the word for it. I kept saying awkward comedy, and because I'm a big fan of that. But yeah, cringe comedy, perfect.
Yeah. So speaking of that role, Charles. So what? Basically, it was kind of like such a there were so many sequences I think you had in there that were so signature of a stand-up comic. And actually, I have to say, Tim and I kind of do the same thing. We torture our wives with jokes and stuff, like specifically the one scene where you're to pretend it with I have a monocle, I have that, like that just cracked me up because that's something I know Tim and I would do. Exactly.
Totally.
We do that to our wives. We torment them with bad puns and all these. So like how much freedom did you have to kind of do those things? Because some of them seems just so natural and almost like ad-libbed. I mean, was that any of that like just act funny here or kind of stuff like that?
Yeah, I would say Nick gave me full freedom. I mean, I think we did it. We did every scene once to the script, and then we did it. We could say and do whatever we wanted. We just kind of got like full reign to improvise and go totally nuts. So, and then after that, we would kind of like try to take the stuff from the improvs that we really liked, take the stuff from the written stuff that we really liked, and then we tried to do a take where we kind of combined the two. But the monocle thing was improvised, but I think the monocle thing was actually in the craziest take.
Well, yeah, it's like, you joking around about being a gentleman was there, and then you just kind of took it to that extra level with the monocle.
Yeah, and I remember that was the second thing we shot, maybe. And
yeah, it was the second scene we shot, yeah.
It was the second scene we shot, and I remember being like, okay, I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to see if everybody hates me, like our girlfriends and our wives do when we do shit like that, or I'm going to see if everybody loves it. And I would say it was split, half and half. But Nick loved it, so that's all that mattered.
Yeah, that was one of my actually favorite little sequences, just because, like I said, we could relate to it. But also, there was the other one I think I really liked when, and it just seemed so natural the way you guys did it. It seemed like it was a real, like, totally believable relationship when you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna become one of those couples that jog together, and then you just have the one beat, the pause, and the one that everyone hates. Like, it's like so natural, like there, that it's like it fits in, like it's stuff you'd find in a romantic comedy, basically. but yet you're in the middle of this great horror, like this horror comedy, which is so cool. I thought some of that stuff really made this movie stand out as some of those like signature elements that you probably wouldn't find necessarily in a horror comedy.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that like Quinn and I worked really hard to, and Nick worked really hard to make the relationship grounded and believable, so that when the kind of horror stuff came out, it was a surprise, or it, you know, like you kind of feel like it's coming, and then when it actually happens, we want it to feel, for people to be like, oh, I didn't necessarily want that to happen. I was kind of enjoying this relationship, and like they were having fun and they were being funny. So it was that we tried really hard to make sure it felt like a real relationship, and it felt like she would actually like me, and that I had something redeeming that would be like dateable.
I think someone called it if Judd Apatow made a slasher, which I'll take.
Well, that's a good compliment, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was one reviewer who pointed this out, which is something I always thought but never said, or I might have said this to Nick. There was one reviewer who was like, Quinn Jackson is so much better looking than Charles Gould. He has no idea why they're dating. And I remember the first time I met, wait, did I tell you this, Nick?
I don't know what you're about to say.
Well, the first time I met her, when we did that first like table read, I think afterwards I was like, is she too good looking?
Oh yeah, maybe we did have this conversation.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, you're handsome.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, I just had I had that thought, and so it was kind of important to, how does this guy who makes really bad jokes, and why is this girl who's so much better looking than him and he makes bad jokes, why is she dating him? So it became like really important to be like, this guy and this girl have a very real relationship.
Yeah.
Well, again, if this makes you feel better, Tim and I ask ourselves that same question with our wives at the same time every day. And they're friends, actually. They became really good friends, so they're all texting. God only knows what they text about us. We don't know.
I don't want to know.
Oh, you got to read their text messages.
Then it might become a horror movie, I think, if we did that.
Yeah.
So
I endorse reading your partner's text messages.
So we touched on this a little bit, I think, but when going back to the subject of cringe comedy or awkward comedy, which I'm just a big fan of. I love that. I love The Office. I'm trying to think of other examples. Napoleon Dynamite, any kind of like where you have characters that are just cringy. But I got to thinking about it. It kind of fits well with a horror movie, because when you're in that situation in real life, it is terrifying and mortifying to be in a situation where you don't know what to say, or, you know, that kind of thing. And I know, Nicholas, you said this was kind of came out of the idea of proposing to your wife, but I've never seen a horror comedy go in that direction stylistically with comedy. It's usually like a slapstick thing like Evil Dead or over the top gore. That's where your humor comes from. So again, I was just kind of trying to get a feel for how you came up with the idea to mash these two genres together. It just seems so incongruent, but it actually really, really works.
Yeah, also some of it, so I think I played around with this like very specific horror comedy tone first in I made a short called Holiday Fear back in 2017. That was basically just one scene that was a back and forth between a couple, and the man was tasked with finishing off this Santa slasher, and he couldn't do it, and then the girlfriend's just making fun of him the whole time. So I tested the waters with this kind of tone. I don't know. For some reason, the tone just comes naturally to me.
Oh, believe me too, because I'm awkward as all get out. So,
but I think the awkwardness, the cringeness, like really does lend itself to also then building tension on the horror side. So I think it all kind of really does mash up together.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, this next one. This one's a maybe kind of a spoileristic question. So any of our listeners that have not watched this yet, you may want to pause for this question and come back to it.
I would say mild spoiler.
Mild, yes. I mean, I'm sure from the trailer you can tell. But so as the movie progresses, it kind of builds towards this big reveal, this revelation. And so, what kind of steps did you take, Nicholas in the writing and Charles in the performance, to kind of tease it but not tip it? because that's always one of the biggest mistakes that a movie can make if they tip something too early. And I think you guys had perfectly the line of like, you know, you had doubt. You're like, oh, maybe this is going to happen. Oh, no, maybe no. Now I'm not sure anymore, you know, and you're not sure what goes on. So how did you guys both go about that?
I mean, on the writing front, it was actually funny because the twist actually came a lot very late in the writing process. And when it happened, it was almost a surprise to me. But the way that I kind of went backwards on it and kind of developed backwards, and I kind of actually wanted to design it in a way that if you watch the movie a second time, it's kind of obvious from the beginning. And like things will play differently once you know the twist. Like even in the cut from the first two scenes, when you watch it the second time, it's clear that he's just having a flashback to what has happened in real life.
Yeah, and I did watch it twice, so I did kind of got that. Yeah.
How about you, Charles?
I would say for me, it was that Nick gave me this piece of direction where he was like, don't think of it as you wait. So can I spoil the movie or should I not?
Yeah, because we'll put a warning. This will probably come out after it's released on next Monday. So hopefully people get a chance. Well, you know, we'll tease it to make sure people try and watch it before.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, Nick was like, you never kill her in your brain. You just break up with her. So throughout the whole movie, it's not building to you being like, oh, I'm going to kill her. It's building to you being like, I guess this just has to end and I have to break up with her. So that as an actor was what made it easier for me to be like, okay, this isn't building to me murdering her. This is building to me breaking up with her and just like having a hard conversation because I know she like loves me. And that's how I tried to play everything up until I totally lose it.
Well, I have to say that part, like I did not expect, you know, because you had this tone of like the whole, like we mentioned earlier, the change of tone, but the brilliant sequence when you were when, you know, you were kind of that chase, almost like it kind of reminded me a little Shining-esque almost, you know, and so when you were in there and you were screaming about the, you know, like we have someone come into the house to see if we're okay for a dog in the middle, and they're like, my sister, you know, we're throwing you a party, and it's like you get all this kind of like cohabitable like events that'll happen while you're literally chasing her to do God knows what to her at that point, you know.
Yeah, I was going through the long list of things that a friend of mine really wanted to break up with his girlfriend. They had lived together for 5 years by this point, and for about 3 years now, he had been telling me he wanted to break up with her. And every time he was going to do it, he had some reason why he wasn't going to do it. Like, so he'd be like, "Oh, we're going on vacation for 2 weeks," or he'd be like, "Oh, we're thinking about getting a dog." And then there was one where he was like, "Oh, well, I'm turning 30, and I want to have a girlfriend when I turn 30." And I was just like, "It's just so incredible." Like, people will just. Excuses people will give themselves to stay in these horrible relationships, and I was like, "Oh, that kind of works here for this movie."
That's why, yeah, I thought it was so funny to have you screaming these kind of mundane, like 30-year-old relationship problems while you're also trying to murder her.
Yeah. Well, because there is an element of I live with my girlfriend now. We've only been together since June. We've only been living together since June, and you have to give up a part of yourself. Like, there is a part of yourself that you do kind of have to kill in order to make the relationship work. And it's mostly pretty mundane bullshit. Like, I can't, like, read my magazine in the morning anymore.
Wait, Charles, should we fear for the safety of your girlfriend?
It might be too late. And over to her dead body.
Oh God! Now, Tim, our interview is going to come be wrapped in a cellophane bag here in a second.
They can't. We're not using the video. They can't prove it.
Oh, that's true.
This is a true crime podcast now.
Yeah, we switched mid bike. Yeah, but no, I have to say that sequence was amazing because it was such a perfect culmination of all the mixed genres into one right at the end, and I thought that was just a fantastic way to kind of for that the third act in that film to really just kind of like to wrap things up and just kind of hit it home. Like you basically gave a dose of everything that you really like going up into the movie, you know, throughout the movie, and all again like right in your face at the end. I thought that was great.
Yeah, that was all about that last 15 minutes. It was worth it. Yeah.
So, guys, this next question, I apologize in advance because this has become our most dreaded question for our interviewees, and I don't know why. Like, I thought this was like a softball, and like every time we ask it, like they get this deer in the headlights look. But we'll see how you handle it. And it's very simple, and it's with so many horror films out, why should our listeners watch your film?
I mean, I think you already said it, where we combine this mumblecore rom-com with crazy ass slasher, and you've never seen this mix of horror comedy before.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yes.
I would say if you're looking for something completely original, then this is the movie for you. It does rom-com, it does comedy, it does horror in a way that you've never seen either of those before.
And it may make you cringe and feel uncomfortable at times, but it's also very fun. It's a very fun 77 minutes.
Yes, I agree. And see, you guys handled that perfectly. So you might have won the award for the best answer of that.
Exactly.
So on point.
Who are these idiots that you're interviewing?
But so I guess to wrap things up a little bit, why don't you can both tell your listeners kind of where to find out more about you both, you know, in websites, social media, etc. You know, so if they want to follow your other projects and stuff too.
Well, I have a special on Comedy Central app that you can watch, or you can watch it on their YouTube. And you can follow me at Charles Gould 1 on Instagram and Middle Kid Gould on Twitter, but I don't really tweet anymore. So I would do Instagram.
Yeah, you can follow me at Nick Payne Santos on Instagram or Twitter, or go to my website at npsantos.com.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for coming on, because it's fun when we get these screeners and we end up really liking the film, and then we get to talk to some people who created it and starred in it, because it just gives us that extra insight that we're wondering about as we're watching it. So it's pretty cool. So thank you guys so much for giving us all the info on it and stuff.
Yeah, best of luck in all your future projects. If you guys have anything else you want to promote or come back on the show, just drop us a line. We'll be glad to promote it.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks. Yeah. It was fun.
All right, Brian. So it took a little it's been a while since we've done an interview. It's been a couple weeks since we've been kind of on a hiatus. Took a little bit to get back into the swing of things, but it was fantastic. Those guys were really great, and I really loved hearing them talk about kind of the inspiration behind this movie, because it is so unique.
Yeah, no, and it was one that that when I first saw it, I was like, oh, I haven't really heard of this one. And then the way they described it as it's a horror comedy, I'm like, okay, love horror comedies, but definitely was not prepared for this. Like, as we say, you hear in the interview why it was so different, and I think it's definitely one that that might slip by you if you were not paying attention. So I definitely think I'm glad we got to do this, because then hopefully we can get a lot of people there that might have missed this to pay attention to this, because I think you'll enjoy it. And Charles Gould is hilarious. I mean, if you've seen some of his stand up, you'll kind of see what you're going to get in the movie, but then you get so much more, because it turns out he's got some really good acting chops on top of his comedic timing. So yeah, definitely check this out. It will be, by the time you're listening to this, it had just come out. It comes out on Friday the 13th, perfect day for any kind of horror movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, that just came out a couple days ago. So if you want to give it a chance on VOD, and then check out the interview, because I think you'll get a lot of good insight onto what made that movie.
All right, so our featured film this week, we are kicking off our series of holiday-themed movies, and of course for November we had to kick it off with a Thanksgiving film. And this one, I will have to say, is definitely more thriller than horror. This is part of the Hulu Into the Dark series. I have not seen all of these, but they're primarily based around different holidays. It was a whole series that Hulu did of horror movies, and there's some really good ones on there. I have not even begun to see all of them, because there's a ton on there. I think they released one a month, right?
Yeah, it's basically, so there's probably like at least probably now over 24 of them, but
this is called Hulu prefaces all these with Into the Dark, but the name of the movie is Flesh and Blood. It's from 2018. It was directed by Patrick Lussier.
Yeah, he's the one that did the remake. He's probably best known for the remake of My Bloody Valentine,
which I actually like that remake.
It was good. I mean, I still prefer the original because that's one of my favorites of all time. But yeah, no, it's one of those ones where the remake was so good and it stood on its own so well that it was like, they could both exist and make everyone happy.
Yeah. Stars Dermot Mulroney, Dylan McDermott.
Yeah. Who is it? Dermot McDermott? I don't know.
Dermot Rupert McDermott? I don't know. Sorry. Dermot
Dylan
Mulroney.
I don't know.
We're, of course, referring to the...
Dermot Dylan?
I don't. Me and Brian knew exactly what I was talking about when I
yeah.
mentioned it, but there's an SNL sketch where it was a game show, Dermot Mulroney or Dylan McDermott, and they were confused. And even Dermot Mulroney couldn't tell himself apart from Dylan McDermott. But
yes, he wasn't sure. But
this is Dermot Mulroney. All kidding aside, plays Henry Toombs. Diana Silvers plays Kimberly Toombs. Timby Locke as Dr. Helen Saunders. Meredith Salingers as Rose Toombs. Lavetta Cannon as Officer Foster. Heidi Saltzman as Officer Banks. And Matthew Downs as Mr. Taylor. Kimberly, a teenager suffering from agoraphobia, has not left the house since her mother's unsolved murder. On the eve of Thanksgiving, she begins to suspect that the safe harbor of home and her doting father may be a dangerous mirage. And I thought that this was a really clever setup to do a character-driven one-set horror movie, because the whole premise is that Diana Silvers, who plays Kimberly, is so afraid of going outside, she's kind of confined to this house. So she's kind of like a prisoner of her own mind. And it kind of puts her in a situation where in a normal horror movie, you'd say, well, why don't you just leave?
Yeah.
And in this case, she can't. She literally can't.
And she tries, and they do a good, interesting little camera work in the beginning when you see her go out where like they blur the camera and it gets very disorienting as if she's going to pass out almost. And like, so you kind of like, as an audience, you feel what she's feeling, which I thought was a neat little trick. Cause they do things like that all the time, of course, but I thought this one was pretty effective because it really got like, it like just kind of came out of nowhere where they switched to that like kind of camera. But and that's always a thing. So it's, when you think about it, it's like, like Kim and Ket always have the joke, and the line from Scream, why didn't you go run upstairs instead of running out the front door? Well, she can't run out the front door, so she only has the steps or the basement or the crawl space. So she basically has eliminated her best possibility on how to escape if something goes wrong. But
yeah, and it's we've seen you've seen variations on this. You've seen variations where the heroine is deaf or the heroine is blind or has something that's impacting their ability to fight against a threat. I'd never seen this particular one done, so that was kind of cool. And I actually really liked this movie. I thought when I first started it, I realized that it was one that I had started and maybe had watched 15 minutes of and had never completed on Hulu way back when it first came out. And so when I started it, I was like, oh my gosh, I already started this and turned it off, probably because I was bored or something. But once I actually started watching it, I really, really kind of got into it. And part of that, of course, is Dylan McDermott's performance, because I'm kind of used to him, or whatever his name is, Dermot Mulroney.
It's Dermot McDermott.
Dermot McDermott's. I'm gonna start calling him McDermott.
Dermot McDermott. Yeah.
Part of that is Dermot McDermott's performance, because I'm so used to seeing him as a kind of a, he always tends to play like these kind of like, maybe he's like the heartthrob, like
he's like a suave gentleman,
the suave gentleman, or the handyman next door neighbor that the housewife has eyes for. He's always that kind of guy. But in this one, he's actually, not to give too many spoilers, but this is a horror movie, he does have some menace to him, and I love seeing characters kind of play against type. I would say he's a little bit, I don't know, to me he's always had a little bit of a sinister air to him. Not sinister, but maybe like a little bit of a, I don't know. I'm trying to describe it, but
I think, you know what I think it is? I think he knows that people think he's Dylan McDermott and you know, all the time. And so he uses that to his advantage to woo you into a confusional state. So you know he can just get you whenever he wants. But
that must be what it is. But I thought he was great as the father in this movie, playing this kind of well, I mean, let's be honest. He gets to just go kind of crazy in this.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you know, Dermot McDillon. I mean, he's really no, it's Dermot Mulroney and he's actually one of my favorite actors. Both of them, actually, I like them both. But yeah, no, but well, and he does a good job of going like that, doing that. But it's funny, his voice like never changes. Like he's still got that like that. Well, you know, like that a little bit of rasp and that thing, and it just gets louder. And I wrote this down because I really, I say this over and over again, but nothing pleases me more to see one of those over the top psychotic performances that feature like just sudden yelling. You know,
yes.
like, or sudden mood changes that get so drastic. Like, I think the master of, I mean, of course, you know, everyone will say, you know, Jack Nicholson in The Shining, but like, I think like someone who's made that an art is Robert De Niro, especially if you see like The Fan and This Boy's Life. This Boy's Life, and my friend Mark and I, we can watch that movie. Then that's not supposed to be really a comedy. Okay, but we can. There's so many lines in that where De Niro, you know, he'll be like, you know, like, well, why? He goes, why? I just told you why. You know, and he gets in this like, you know, these things, or he goes, or you know, the taunting, or it is new, it's new to you. You know, like those taunting, menacing things, and then it'll go to this level of screaming and stuff. Yeah,
like, would you say Dermot Mulroney did his best Nicolas Cage?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, he might as well be Dermot McCage or Mulcagey. I don't know. He was Dermot Mulcagey in this. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah, because he, you know, especially the one scene at the end when he like really starting to lose it, and he's like, you know, and then because he goes from this. I mean, okay, this movie's 2 years old, so at this point, we apologize if you haven't seen it yet, and we're gonna spoil it. But you know, just like the scenes with like the. And some of the long game setups, like the turkey, you know, like because he leaves her to do the turkey. And, you know, during this time, instead of watching the turkey, she used it to find out like these horrible revelations
secrets
about her dad. And he comes back and he starts flipping out because he knows something's wrong. And then you see him heading to the oven and you're like, oh boy, you're like that Michael Jackson popcorn meme, you know, where he's eating it because you know, he opens it up and sees the burnt the turkey.
Like, oh yeah.
And I actually started to laugh because he's like come on. it's like all the guy wanted was like a turkey dinner, and he comes home with not like they literally forgot the side dishes. I mean, they were literally, according to Dylan McDermott BKG, he basically wanted like his whole Thanksgiving turkey. Yeah, his Thanksgiving dinner involved the turkey and pie. That was it.
Yeah, it was a turkey and a pie.
And the best was the line later when he's like, and I made you the pie, which you don't even deserve. And I'm just like, I lost it. I mean, some of those things, it's like, you're not supposed to be laughing at this, but something about that just entertains me in such a guilty pleasure way. I can't. And we should say, on the opposite side of this, Diana Silvers, I mean, I haven't seen her do anything that's not awesome. I mean, she was great in Ma. She was really good in Booksmart too. She was even funny in that the little bit she was in the part. I didn't see the whole series yet, but the part she was in Space Force on Netflix.
Yeah, she was in Glass. She played a little
that's right. She's just amazing. Like, she's so good. And this, she has such a great, like, because she has a very vulnerable look throughout it, but yet she's not at all. She's like, she totally overcomes her thing, and she's really intelligent. Like, she basically knows she knows what her disadvantage is, but yet knows every other way possible to try and be like, you know, it's like she like, and I have to say, it's funny, but this movie, which you would think would be just kind of almost, and you know, since we didn't see them all, maybe a lot of them are all this good. I know the ones that I've seen, I've liked every one of them, of these Into the Dark ones, like the Pilgrim, the second
that one was great.
One.
Yeah,
that one was fantastic. Really, but what was so good about this is I thought, like, I mean, this had some good quality foreshadowing, and like they kept like in the beginning with all the teas, right? And I'm like, all right, with the tea already, what the heck? But it totally paid off later on when, she's mixing these teas and it became a whole thing. And it's another one where he's like, I think the milk is turned, and the therapist's like, no, mine is perfect. And I'm like, oh my God, the guy's just so unhappy. He can't even get a good cup of tea in his house, and it's just, but there's so many like really like just smart moments they make of this and how she does it. And it's like, I tell you, he went all in on this. He went all in. And it's a shame that people are going to go out there literally and say, wow, Dylan McDermott did a great job.
If you want to see Dermot Mulroney totally unravel over the course of 90 minutes, this is a great way to do it. I will say this, when you talked about, we talked about spoilers and stuff, the one thing that this movie does not have, to me, was a lot of twists. Like, it's pretty apparent. Like, it pretty plays it straightforward
right.
It plays out like you think it's going to play out. Like, there's no, like, sudden reveal where everything's, I'm shocked at what happened. I mean, if you watch 20 minutes of this movie, think of what's the most predictable way this could play out, and that's kind of what it does.
Yeah.
So I don't feel too bad giving spoilers, because it's really a very straightforward plot-wise film. They didn't try to put a lot of twist and mystery into it, but I kind of like that. I kind of like that it was simple and refreshing, and you could just concentrate on Dermot Mulroney, Dylan McDermott, doing his craziest, Nicolas Cage impression as he kind of slowly unravels. And, and I think it works even better because Diana Silvers is so convincing and so good that she kind of plays the straight man to Dylan McDermott Mulroney's craziness. And the doctor
Dylan McRoney.
Yeah, Dylan McRoney. And Timby Locke is the doctor. She's also serves to kind of ground the movie and play it very straight. So I liked it way more than I thought I would. It really is not on paper. This movie just, and especially with it being a thriller, it's not even a horror movie. Really, it's a thriller, suspense thriller. And I just thought, on paper, this doesn't look like a movie I'd really enjoy, but I found myself really entertained. It's got to be Dermot's Mulroney, Cage, Dermot Mulroney. That did it for me.
Well, yeah, him and whoever he is, and Diana Silvers. Yeah, they just what a combo that you would not expect of. I mean, here's one guy you have that people keep calling him someone else, and then you have Diana Silvers, which I think was her first. I think that was her first role at that point. I don't know if that. I think that might, because I think it came out just before Ma, if I'm correct, and so it's like, at that point when people saw this back then, I don't think anyone.
Yeah, that was her first feature. Yeah, that was her first feature.
Yeah, and she did a great job. And if I'm kind of wishing I would have seen. I mean, I saw her first in Ma, and and I saw how great she was in that. But then I figure, or no, actually, technically, I might have seen her in Glass first. Technically, I don't remember but it's but she was a smaller role in Glass, but. But yeah, so I mean, it was just overall such like she did such a strong performance. He did that, and together they were just a good team. That it was and that's important for a movie that essentially is like almost like one of those like almost like a play where it's like just two people are conversing the whole time. But but it's taken to this higher level. There was one more thing he did was when she drugs him and he passes out, and he falls to the ground, and you're like, oh, he's passed out, and he just does that like, that one more sound effect on the ground. It's like, I'm like, wow, like, how have we not heard of this performance yet? Were we in a bubble? Did we just miss it? Did we tune it out as another Dylan McDermott vehicle? What did we miss? Like, how did we not know this existed? Because, like, I actually want to, like, go back and watch it again just to see his, like, zaniness, because it's so, like I said, like, things like that just entertain me to, like, the highest level, and I don't know why.
I don't want to say he's, like, intentionally hamming it up, because I don't want to say that, because it's not that, like, comical. It's just, to me, though,
because I laugh at horrible things. That's
I think that's a me and Brian personality thing. I don't think he was intentionally trying to ham it up, but I think if it had been anybody else that wasn't recognizable, maybe just some random guy, I don't think this movie would have really registered with me. But it was Dermot Mulroney. Just knowing him and then seeing him do this, I think it was just what made it.
And one funny thing too is, I know we're joking, but like, we both know who Dylan McDermott is versus Dermot Mulroney. But it is funny. It's like I never confused the two ever, but it was the Saturday Night Live skit that like wanted me to. So I almost like pretend to confuse them because I always knew who they were. But it was just a brilliant Saturday Night Live sketch. One of those ones that now like just come into everyone's lexicon. They're not even sure where they got it from. Some people.
And I will I'll freely admit, I would say at least half a star rating for this movie was solely because of that SNL sketch. Like literally, like added at least half a star to this movie's rating because I smiled every time Dermot Mulroney came on screen, and I was thinking back to that SNL sketch. So yeah, and
he's it just overall. So definitely, I mean, this one's on Hulu. If you have Hulu, really no reason not to check it out, especially this month. Thanksgiving. It's pretty good. And I actually like how they even like give you the dates. Like they even say like Thanksgiving, Black Friday. They actually have the little title cards on the days, so you actually get through the holiday, which is kind of fun. But,
and all kidding aside, aside from the Dermot Mulroney McDermott performance, check it out for Diana Silvers because you really get to see her. She had smaller parts in Ma and of course Glass, but you really get to see her, if you haven't seen Booksmart, you get to see her in a horror movie setting, really getting to take a lead role, which I thought was really cool. She's really talented. Because
technically Ma, I mean, she was kind of the lead, but she's also kind of part of the ensemble. I mean, she definitely out of the kids, she was probably definitely the lead, but there was Juliette Lewis in there. There was, of course, the amazing Octavia Spencer is like steals that entire movie. So yeah, it was a little bit definitely harder to maybe harder for her to stand out, but in this it's like there are a lot of scenes where she's just by herself acting and not even saying a word, and she captures it. So yeah, I expect big things. I'll watch her in anything. She's just amazing.
All right, so what do we have for our beer pairing? I hate this. Was there any Dylan McDermott, Mulroney beers?
Don't laugh. That's the first thing I searched. I searched Dylan McDermott because I thought, like, okay, so McKellar, the brewing company, like McKellar's one of those brewing companies that makes beers that would be like that kind of a name. Like they had one called Hi Merc instead of Hi Mark. Like they had so they make all those kind of plays on it. There's some breweries out there that like excel on making like pop culture sounding, names for their beer. And I was almost assured that I was going to find a Dermot Mulroney, Dylan McDermott beer.
Like a Dermot Mulroney.
Yeah. We need to copyright that one. I like that. Yes. You got to do that one. Too. But yeah, so so I looked again and I found literally one. It's called Burnt Turkey. Because I actually went out and I literally searched Burnt Turkey beer, hoping I'd hit it, and boom, within like 0.00002 seconds on Google.
That might be the best beer pairing for a movie that probably doesn't deserve that good a beer pairing.
Exactly.
That you've ever come up with.
Yeah, I have to say so myself. I think that was a good one. And so this one is from Hand Map Brewing. That made me think, I'm like, Hand Map? The only thing I could think of is when, like when you used to go, like when someone sits there and they're like, how do you get there? And they put out their hand. They go, well, you go up here there and make a left on Interstate 12 over there, and they're moving it on their hand. It's the only thing I can think of what a hand map is, or like, remember the old days and like when you play touch football, they go, all right, you go left, you go. I assume that's a hand map. But anyway, so probably something completely different. I'm totally missing it. But anyway, so Burnt Turkey. I didn't really get much on it because their website is not ready. It's a microbrewery, so probably pretty hard to find this beer. But it was too good to pass up as the match. But basically, it's a brown ale brewed with maple syrup, and it's out of Battle Creek, Michigan.
The cereal capital. They have a Fruit Loop flavored beer.
Yeah,
I just looked them up.
They have Battle Creek, Michigan has some, from what I've seen a bunch of breweries that I need to try there if I ever make it up to Battle Creek, Michigan.
All right, so let's get to our triple threat from last week. We were looking for a movie, and the first clue was I had brief appearances by 2 stars from the original film in my franchise. We were looking for Halloween 3: Season of the Witch. That first clue was a little tricky because horror fans know this, but some people may not know that Jamie Lee Curtis has a voice credit as the curfew announcer, and Nancy Keys played Linda Chalice, and they, of course, played Laurie Strode and Annie Brackett in the original Halloween. Clue number 2, the tagline for this film was almost identical to the first film in the series. Of course, Halloween 3's tagline of The Night No One Came Home was based off the original Halloween's The Night He Came Home. And clue number 3, while this film is the director's first director credit, this is not his first credit as part of the franchise. Of course, director was Tommy Lee Wallace, who was one of the editors and the production designer of the original Halloween. So
yeah, and real quick, the thing, if you get a chance, you need to watch the Scripts Gone Wild reading of Halloween 3. It is hilarious. They got, they have Daniel Harris, they have Brian Quinn, Tiffany Shepis. I can't remember everybody on there, but they have Brian Quinn plays the Tom Atkins role to like this most awkward perfection, is what I will say, because it's so not Tom Atkins, but like the best way he could be Tom Atkins. And Tiffany Shepis, I think she did Conal Cochran. She plays, so it's really good, just pretty funny. If you haven't seen any of those, I recommend. I watched the Sleepaway Camp one after it too, but these are just hilarious. They think, because basically, if you don't know what they are, they basically sit there and they read a script. They get a whole bunch of people there to act out, different celebrities act the parts. There's usually a charity involved that they donate to, and they put in what's the best part is they put in a couple of words that cause where everyone has to drink. So, but yeah. Oh, and oh my God, what was it? James Gunn's wife was hilarious. She was I forgot who she played in it, but she was cracking me up. And because as they get, they drink a little more, they get a little sillier. So it just gets pretty funny because it just they really ham up the roles, which is what's great. So I definitely highly recommend you checking those out.
Nice. All right, so our triple threat for this week, we're going to switch it up again and look for an actress. So here we go. Clue number 1. While I primarily go by my middle name, my real first name shares the same as another legendary scream queen. Clue number 2. My last name is the same name as a fictional movie character, but unlike that character, I didn't go down under. And clue number 3, I have been in more than 125 films and have more on the way. That's a tough one. That's a really tough one.
Yeah, I mean, there's one I think it's funny. If you somehow get into me and Tim's mind, it's a giveaway. Yeah. But I won't tell you which one that one is. But yeah, no, I think this one was. I think it's right. And I think astute pop culture and horror fans will. They're really good with stuff like that. Will probably pick up the one that they need to get that will lead them right to the answer. But I still think I made it challenging enough that if you're right down the middle there, you'll probably be able to get it with a little bit of research. But it's just challenging enough to kind of, I think give you some excitement there to try and find the answer.
All right, so on to our fan topic food question of the week, and this is another great one from David McHugh, Horror Mailman on Twitter. And I really love this question. I was very excited to answer this one. Better overall filmography, Wes Craven or John Carpenter?
Now, I will say this. When I looked at this question, this could be looked at 2 ways. I mean, you could make the assumption, and I'm sure David can answer this for us, but look, you said we don't like to really go to too much, we try and take the question as is and kind of make our own assumption. But so you would think, okay, better over a filmography, that's just movies they directed. But if you look beyond that, which is kind of what my mindset is, I think there is don't get me wrong, I love both of these people, and they are 2 of my favorites in the entire horror world. But if you look at just what's on the filmography, there, to me, is a clear-cut, confident decision I make without a second of doubt.
Me too. Yeah, when I first saw it, and that's the way I kind of took it. I took it as I look at filmography as directing. I mean, that's just me. I look at I'm looking at if you say which, I took this question to mean which director has the best overall films they've directed, and to me, this one was very clear cut. So I guess you want me to go first, Brian?
Sure.
All right. So for me, John Carpenter, hands down. The reason why is because when I looked through, I kind of, when I first looked at this question, I was like, you know what? I want to go through and kind of catalog their films in like classics, and then kind of maybe like mid tier, and then kind of like not so good. And then I looked at that and I was like, that's kind of a mathematical way to look at it. But you do get a sense that of the two, Wes Craven has, of course, Nightmare on Elm Street, and of course he's got the Scream franchise. And those are fantastic. And he's got some other great films.
Well, some of his first early ones,
Oh, Last House on the Left.
Yeah,
course,
I mean, but so I mean, he's definitely got like, I mean, in terms of you're going iconic versus iconic, it closes in. So that's why, I mean, you almost have to kind of put in a tiebreaker and kind of go beyond the just director, I think. But even so, I think I'd still make my decision, because I mean, I might as well give it away. My decision, of course. Like I looked at this and I said, okay, even if it's just directing, it's Carpenter. But if it's by like, let's put it to election terms, if you put in the absentee ballots of all his other filmography credits, hands down, it's Carpenter for me.
Yeah, and the reason why is the reason why I say that is, to me, and this is just a personal opinion, is variety and breadth, because Carpenter did some like non-horror type stuff that's still really good, like Escape from New York, which I would say is not really horror, but
Tim, one of your favorites of all time.
Yeah,
but you have that board game I'm so jealous of that I can't, like, it's $500.
Yeah, and then obviously Big Trouble in Little China, and then you got stuff like Christine. He does Stephen King adaptation. You've got
he runs the gamut, really.
And not only that, he's a brilliant composer, which that is a theme to the question, but and obviously The Thing, obviously Halloween, which kind of set the stage for everything that would come after. You've got like stuff like Assault on Precinct 13 and Dark Star, and he's got Starman. I mean, I love Starman. That was
oh my god, I loved it. Remember
Kidnapped.
Yeah, Kidnapped.
Kidnapped.
I used to went around saying that, like, to anyone who dared to listen. I mean, so it's
but
like...
then Wes Craven, he's got some absolutely iconic movies, but a lot of them are the Scream franchise and a lot of them are the Nightmare franchise,
right?
And even though he's got some other ones, like he's got some real stinkers in there, like My Soul to Take was not great. You had, I mean, Vampire in Brooklyn. I mean, some of these, Serpent in the Rainbow is good. That's a great one. Shocker, not so much. So I feel like Wes Craven's was just a little, to me, just a little more uneven, even though he has some absolute horror classics in here. Don't get me wrong. I feel like overall, if you stuck me on a desert island and I could only watch John Carpenter movies or Wes Craven movies, I feel like John Carpenter definitely has the edge in terms of good, like really, I mean, They Live, I forgot about that, but really good movies that have a lot of variety to them. Whereas Wes Craven, I feel like, has some really good movies, but they're all kind of in the same lane, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I think, and like I said, it's like you kind of almost, he does say filmography, so you would assume because you're comparing two directors, but Carpenter is so beyond just a director that you can't ignore it in making this decision, I think.
Yeah. Oh, and The Mouth of Madness. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, and you're not... I mean, and also, too, if you're going to look, I mean, like, in terms of, like, horror films, let's say, because we are a horror podcast, of course, I mean, if you're just going to compare their two most iconic things in terms of horror, you obviously... I mean, I guess it depends, but most horror fans would go to Halloween versus, versus something else. But, so let's just take it as Halloween versus Nightmare on Elm Street. Halloween wins for me. Halloween versus Scream series. Halloween wins for me still. So it's like just there alone, and like, again, it's like you're comparing like two of the best things you can get and like trying to pick one. It's like no matter what you pick, you're winning. It's like one of those few things, someone's got to lose. Well, no, you really don't in this one. You don't lose if you get one or the other. Like say you were assigned one of the other. Like Tim, we had to take like okay, desert island scenario, right? You and I are on a desert island, and for some random reason we wouldn't share. You got stuck with one, I got stuck with the other. Yeah. Like, do either one of us really lose in the end? I mean,
no. But you brought up a good point, which earlier where you said, John Carpenter, if you're looking at like pure direction, I think to me, John Carpenter has more of a distinctive style than Wes Craven does. Yeah. Dare I say? I mean, not that Wes Craven wasn't brilliant in his own right. And he does have his own signature, but I just feel like John Carpenter's just a much bolder signature on his movies than Wes Craven's was. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, and then you take a movie like the original Halloween, and it's just what it's done for how it was so his, I mean, so much of it was him, from the music and just and just everything about it. I mean, that's owning a film, and it's like, I don't know if, I mean, maybe, I don't know, Wes Craven could have carried a tune. We don't know.
I tell you the other thing I like about John Carpenter, which I don't know if many people think about. Wes Craven was great. When he did Scream, he basically, he almost single-handedly resurrected horror. I mean, he almost made a new genre, which was like this slasher that has like this hint of comedy, but it's kind of self-aware. I mean, he almost kind of made a new genre out of it. So that was brilliant, but he kind of updated with the times. John Carpenter has never really escaped the 80s. In a good way, though. Like, I love that aspect of it. Like, all his movies are grounded in the same era he made his best movies in, and he's just never really tried, or he's never really gone out of that style. And that's another thing I love about it. Like, his signature is so distinct that he's never gotten out of that 80s mindset that he was in, even his music and everything. Whereas Wes Craven, I think he kind of adapted with the times, and that's when he came out with Scream, and he kind of flowed. And on paper, I would say, well, then Wes Craven has the better sense because he's not stuck in his ways, and he was able to adapt. But I don't know, man. Something about John Carpenter, like, he does one thing really well, and damn it, he's going to keep doing it that same way, and I love that. I absolutely love it.
Well, you know what? I always think of that meme that goes around where do you ever see that thing where they say, like, oh, this is two pictures of people. One first, and then the second one is when they were told how they look beautiful or something. Like everyone has the change, the big smile, and John Carpenter's the same two pictures. It's like, exactly. Who would have thought that's such a perfect microcosm for his career at some level, but in the best way possible, because like, he's like, and I think, now, if you want to say, like, so many, I mean, what's amazing, I think, about John Carpenter, like, to kind of piggyback on what you said, is that, like, the fact that, the new Halloween came out, and David Gordon Green and Danny McBride didn't want to change his style. They kind of, they did their own little bit, but most of it was, like, it was such a good continuation of what John Carpenter did in the original, and and they knew, because they loved it and they wanted to keep it there. So, well, I mean, that says a lot too, because most remakes, sequels, like things like that, but that many part when they try and reboot the franchise, try and go reboot it on steroids. And in this, they kept the core things that you loved about the original, and through most of the movie, and kind of gave it a little bit of oomph, but kept what you loved. So that, to me, that's a testament to John Carpenter's style that everyone loves, and they know it works still.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. To me, that was a fairly easy question, but I think it's a great conversation starter, because there are people out there that would definitely argue the opposite, and they would be perfectly valid in that opinion, because they're both horror masters. So
You know what we need to do? I think once this comes out, because I don't want to like tip our thing on it, until this comes out. But maybe Monday after this comes out, we should do a poll and get let everyone else in on it and just say, hey, so this was our question. You heard how we answered it. How would you answer? And we'll put that out. Like, who has the better filmography?
Yeah,
and let's just see what the fans say.
Question.
I mean, I have a feeling it's gonna like, it wouldn't shock me literally if one person has a way edge or it literally ends up at 50-50.
Yeah, it could go either way.
But that may be one of the best questions out there because that David gave us, because I mean, while we had a clear-cut answer, it still was able to spark such a good discussion because, it's about two guys in the industry that are just so significant and we love all their stuff. So it's like, even though we were completely one side, doesn't matter. We still could have the full-on great conversation with it.
Yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you back here next week for another Thanksgiving Fright Fest.
Yes. And remember, always make sure you check your Dylans and your McDermotts.
And don't leave the turkey in the oven too long.
Yes. Or Mulroney will come after you.